So the next statement is a very, very important one.
No one can convert another person, because nowadays, they say Christians convert others, but it's not possible. I'm a proof for that. Because conversion doesn't happen by compulsion. It is a conviction of the heart. Right? So, salvation is the Lord's. The Bible says that.
What do you think of this statement? Conversions do not happen by compulsion. It is a conviction.
If somebody comes and tells me this, and I'm a practicing Hindu, somebody tells me this, my first thing is to first analyze what you just said. Each statement, I will deconstruct it, because there are some truth claims here. Conversion doesn't happen by compulsion, conviction of the heart, salvation is the Lord's. These are all truth claims that have been made. First thing is to deconstruct every one of these statements, including the jargon used. What is salvation? I'll first ask this Christian interlocutor, what do you mean by salvation? What is this meaning? Because I don't know what salvation means. Please tell me, what does salvation mean? And if salvation is either you practice the divine dictated law, and if you did that as a consequence, if you said the only way to the Father is through the Son, or you followed the rabbinic 10 commandments and you did certain things, or you followed all the injunctions that were there in Islamic law, only then you're admitted by the mercy of Allah or by the grace of Christianity or whatever, you're admitted to heaven, otherwise purgatory. If that is what you're calling salvation, then I now have to confront that and say, do I believe that a Brahman would give somebody eternal damnation forever and ever and ever and ever, burn and suffer that pain forever to eternity? What kind of loving, just God would do that? Infinite punishment. The time does not end. Infinity. It is for infinity. What kind of loving God would do that? That will be my first question. What would they do that? Second thing is conviction of the heart. What exactly do they mean by that? As a person who works on perception and inference, and now if I'm grounding myself to the physical world, I say, what does conviction of the heart mean? The heart is an organ that is doing some pumping of blood. It's a pump. It's a pump that ensures regulation of blood through the body. So what exactly does this conviction of the heart mean? It's an emotive statement. And that emotive statement needs to be translated into a theology, into a philosophy, which we can decode and understand. So to me, I am reading this conviction of the heart as a repeated brainwashing of the self. Repeated statement that this is the law, this is the truth, this is God, this is what he has said. And this one book, one way carries all the truths that are relevant. I'm not going to question this. Remember, I said every exit door has been closed. The minute you go towards an exit door, you're told that it is Satan who's tempting you. Satan is out there waiting with a temptation. Don't go there. Come back to the law. This is the law. Otherwise, either there's blasphemy or there is eternal hellfire waiting for you. So what is referred to as conviction of the heart, to me as a Hindu, I am reading this as a constant suppression of perception, inference, rationality, logic, suppress all of them down and uphold only a blind belief, an unverifiable truth claim, and say this is the only reality out there. So this conviction of the heart to me is one such utter belief in a statement without even making the slightest attempt to rationally, logically examine the truth claim and to look at the world and the other claims out there to see whether they are valid. And conversion doesn't happen by compulsion. I don't know what that even means, because in our world, we have seen that Indians have been primed for conversion. That's what I talk about in my talks. I talk about how there are frameworks that have worked, whether by perverting history, by perverting the Sanskrit translation of works, by the ethnocide that the British have practiced, by removing Indians away from their knowledge systems, by demoting Sanskrit as a medium of instruction, by upholding English, creating classes of deracinated people, creating classes of elites who look down upon the culture of India, the vernacular in India, and such things. All this has resulted in many Indians, especially the urban ones, becoming closet Christians. Closet Christians means your thinking is almost entirely Abrahamic. You're only one word away from becoming a true Christian, meaning that you say, I believe the only way to the Father is through the Son, and you are a full Christian. Otherwise, your thinking, your reaction, the way you do is almost completely Christian. This is because of our education system. This is because the Christian schools, the impact they have had. This is because the missionaries, the things that they wrote, atrocity literature, the way they translated Sanskrit works, the ethnocide practiced by the British, everything has been done in a way to deracinate the Indian, to remove them away from their systems. I don't know when you say conversion doesn't happen by compulsion, but by compulsion, we have studied a version of history. By compulsion, we have been removed from Sanskrit, whether it was the English Education Act of Macaulay or the Nehruvian Joint Parliamentary Commission that rejected the upholding of Sanskrit. So whether either of these things, by compulsion, we have been removed from the knowledge systems of the country. We are not being given the freedom to practice, understand, and propagate our own knowledge systems. Our practices have been curtailed either by Supreme Court or the judicial system or the administrative system or by legions of deracinated media who have demonized every practice of Hinduism. This is what we're seeing. So when people say conversion doesn't happen by compulsion, I don't know how to decode that. The reality is otherwise. People have been, the space to practice Hinduism has been progressively minimized. Progressively it has shrunk to such a point that today you can't go and say you're a Hindu. The minute you do that, say, oh, you're a communal chap, you're saying you're a Hindu. The same chap goes and say, I'm a Christian, say, whoa, all right, you're a Christian. So this is the mind, this is the way the mind is working today. So somebody cannot go and express his identity because they have been programmed to think that this is communal, this is violent, this is retrogressive, this should be jettisoned for progress. All these kind of retro ideas have been filled into people's minds by all these forces that I talked about. So conversion doesn't happen by compulsion is a ridiculous statement that does not take into account the reality of our existence today. Everybody here is a closet Christian. That is unfortunate reality of urban India today.
Correct. So to me, this statement is a poor understanding of what conversion is. The actual statement is there are no conversions in Christianity, there are only convictions. You made a statement saying suppression of rationality. That's what happened in this case, this speaker's case. So if salvation was the Lord's, okay, my question is, why did Christianity pour in billions and is still pouring in billions of dollars into conversions?
Yeah.
It should have left everything to the Lord. And a much more important question is, if salvation was the Lord's, why did Christianity indulge in bloodshed in its early history? When Christians say that there are no conversions, what they basically mean is nobody is telling them to convert. Yes, without using the word convert, they convert. That's what they're doing. So if I have to put everything that you said into the context of this person, then I would say conversion is something that happens with the influence of another person. And to me, conversion is the slow, meticulous, systematic injection of this brain-numbing drug called gospel. And that's exactly what happened in this speaker's case. So she goes to a school. The fancy word is convent or missionary schools. So she goes to this school and she studied there right from her kindergarten. And she said, by her own admission, she said that her friends were telling her the gospel, sharing the gospel with her every single day from that age. So her conversion process started at a young and impressionable age at the kindergarten itself. Why is sending your kids to a missionary school a problem? Because there are more than one reason. The first one is every missionary operated school or the proselytizing school has a Bible as a textbook for the subject called moral science. especially this is especially in schools that follow the CBSE or ICSE curriculum. The second thing is all Christian schools, without exception, have something called the Lord's Prayer during the assembly. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's the Lord's Prayer, which has to be said by every student that goes to that school. So during assembly every day. And as I said, this lady was bombarded with gospel messages from her peers every single day. The next thing that she did is went to a Christian camp. Now that is the culminating point of conversion. So how did she end up in that camp? Did she know it by herself? Do Hindu parents know that there are religious camps? Is sending a child to a religious camp part of Hindu upbringing? It is not. But it is a very important part of the Christian upbringing. Christian kids as young as 6 and 7-year-olds are sent to religious camps during summers. So she goes to that camp because she was invited by a Christian peer. I really can't answer the question how her parents, who she said were Orthodox Hindu parents, sent her to a Christian religious camp. So here is a peer that invited her, and because she's a teenager, and because Hindu teenage kids do not get a chance to go away from their parents for camps, she jumped at it. And she happens to go to this camp. So what happened in the camp? She attends a sermon delivered by a female evangelist. Now, this girl who's listening to this sermon thinks that the evangelist, God was speaking through the evangelist. But it is not so. We'll look at it why. So this girl was sitting, either she was wearing her Hindu identity on that day or not. Regardless, the evangelist knows that she was sitting in that camp. How? Because camp organizers know how many Hindu kids are attending these camps. The very goal, the very motive of these camps is to find new sheep. And the Christian kids that are attending these camps are trained and tutored to bring in new non-Christian kids with them, sometimes even for incentives. So this girl sits there and listens to this sermon. If she is wearing her Hindu identity, she stands out in the crowd, and the evangelist located her and she pointed towards her and started speaking about it. And even if she was not wearing her Hindu identity that day, because Hindu kids are usually ashamed of wearing their Hindu identity, when they are going either to Christian parties, Christian homes, because they do not want to offend their Christian host. So they don't wear it. But going by what she said, that she was never seen without a bottu or vibhuti or kunkuma and all that, I would presume she was wearing it. But even otherwise, the lady knows that she was sitting in the camp in that sermon. Mm-hmm. So she points out at her, and what does she say? She demeans Hindu practices. She demeans Hindu traditions, the practice of idol worship. And she talks about the worthlessness of idols. Well, there's a passage in the Bible the lady refers to. So she offends this girl to the point that back in the room that night, the girl feels so offended. She's a teenager, her ego is hurt, and she's been shamed in front of her peers. So she cries, she feels very bad, and she opens the Bible. Now imagine the mental state of this teenager. She is distressed. She was already on the fence, because by accepting the invitation to attend a Christian religious camp itself indicates that she's on the fence. And she sees what the lady preached that day. Mm-hmm. And she indeed finds that in the passage it says that the idols are worthless. And immediately, she said from her, the clip says that she felt that she was a sinner from the womb itself. So how did she know that she was a sinner? I take it back to the gospel messages that her friends shared at school.
Right.
So it all came back to her when she started reading the Bible. Now, if this is not conversion, what is? It definitely is not conviction.
Right.
So it was a meticulous, it was planned from the beginning in this girl's case, and it was a careful process, curated process by so many external influences, her peers at school, and that constant bombarding of those gospel messages,
Right.
the Lord's Prayer, Bible as a textbook for moral science. Too much of Christianity she had received before that point.
I
That
would
day.
say she had no chance. She had no chance. She was already lock, stock, and barrel, locked in for Christianity as a consequence of her upbringing, as a consequence of the education system, as a consequence of ignorance, as a consequence of deracination and this Christian school. She had no chance.
Correct.
She was a target, a victim, and she has no clue about it. Probably even now, she has no clue she's a victim.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah, you don't know that you're being injected this drug. The person being injected has no clue that he or she is being injected. That's how it works. Now, what is conviction? I would say conviction is what leads a person out of Christianity or out of any Abrahamic faith for that matter. Why? Because that person experiencing that, or the person that has made a decision to quit the Abrahamic faith, is all alone. There are no external influences in this person's life.
Right.
Because when a person decides to quit Christianity, the person cannot share it with the Hindu friends because it's a matter of pride and ego.
Right.
And she cannot share it with a Christian friend
Right.
for fear of being demonized and ostracized.
Right. Right.
So she is left all alone on her battle to fight all alone. So she's reading stuff. She's gathering information about whether it's the right decision for her or not, and she's all alone in this journey. And there comes one point when she or he sees the light completely. Now that is conviction, because there is no external influence. There's nobody telling them that, nobody cheering on, or nobody sharing anything to that effect. So, which is not the case when a person becomes a Christian.
Right.
It is always with external influence that a person becomes a Christian. Now, that is what is conversion.
And with a lot of cheerleaders. And with a lot of cheerleaders and with a lot of acceptance and display and such things. So there's a lot of cheering. So you made a very perceptive statement that conviction really comes when you're able to use perception, inference, logic, rationality in trying to address the truth claims without the fear of all the locked doors in your mind that Satan is tempting you, Satan is the one putting these ideas into your head. By contesting these deeply programmed notions, you're able to smash through those doors. You're able to smash through those doors and break those chains, unshackle those chains, single-handed. You don't have any support system from anybody. Nobody understands what you're going through. But there you are with a scientific background, with understanding the world, understanding logic, rationality, examining these truth claims and saying, there is a world out there. I need to understand what that is. Getting and breaking open that door calls for conviction. Yes,
Correct.
that is what is true conviction.
Correct. And she referred to a camp. Let me just add this bit. So the parents watching this will watch out for such camps, and we caution. I just want to caution them of such camps existing out there. So if I'm right, she is referring to what is called the Scripture Union Camp. She said SU camp. I'm thinking this is what it is, because these camps are Christian retreats for young girls and boys, and these are conducted by a Chennai-based organization called Scripture Union. These camps, this organization works with churches across India, and there are some churches outside of India also that this organization works with in conducting camps. In fact, for raising new generation Christian ministers, evangelists, and pastors, and other preachers, apologists, and all that. So that's what this organization is engaged in. Now, why I'm telling this is a lot of Hindus do not know that a lot of Hindus that are watching this show do not know that such camps exist.
Right.
They do. They do, and they need to watch out for these and beware. If their kid comes back with maybe a tract or a pamphlet saying that it's an invitation to a camp this summer or something, they need to be aware. These are not fun camps.
True.
Like the speaker of this video said, she went there just for fun. These are not fun camps. Like I said, billions of dollars are spent on such activities, and it's not done for fun. So I just wanted to put in a note there about
Let me give a personal anecdote here, Esther. Let me give a personal anecdote. So I studied in Catholic institutions. My schooling in Bangalore was in Catholic institutions. And I was a sort of a school leader also, a lot of leadership activities in my high school and so on. And believe it or not, the school that is run by Society of Jesus, which is one of the groups of SJ, which is the lineage of Xavier, by the way. Xavier was a guy who got Inquisition into Goa, the same murderous Xavier. So this Society of Jesus used to have leadership camps, what they call leadership camps for all the leaders in the school. And there are some Christian kids as well as people like me, Hindus and such people. So we were sent off to some place in the outskirts of Bangalore. There was a divinity school in those days. And that divinity school is where the leadership camp is. And that is where they have 3-4 days retreat where a lot of ideas are put in. And here is a place, like you exactly said, here is where things do happen. However, I was very well grounded in my faith. We were practicing Hindus at home and we knew exactly what we were. And right from very young days, I've been exposed to the Baptists. I've been exposed to the Catholics. I know the differences. I knew a lot about Christianity already. And I made fun of them. I recollect some jokes that I made on Christianity and the conversion process at that time. But the point is that, yes, you're right. These are the leadership camps, what they call leadership camps in Christian schools. This is the time when they take the cream of the class. If I don't want to call myself like that, but the point is the leaders, who they called as leaders, send them off to this retreat where they are exposed to a deep deracination. Exposed to deep deracination, and in this lady's case, also enough of difference anxiety. They infused sufficient difference anxiety by calling out this, you're doing idol worship and this wood can be used for that, can be used for this, why are you doing that? And that is enough to trigger this lady into enormous bouts of difference anxiety, where she's got to show, I'm not different from you, I'm the same as you, and the best is, I'll reject all that and I'll become part of you. So that is psychologically a deep sense of difference anxiety. They did this. This leadership camp was around that also. But the best difference that we had was exactly making jokes of this whole process and getting out of that unscathed. Luckily, I was unscathed. I don't know the others who are with me, how many of them succumbed to this subtle messaging that was done in places like this.
Correct. So sadly remarkable thing about these camps is that this is where several generations of Hindu youngsters were converted to Christianity, which is why I call these camps the youth conversion mills of India.
Mm-hmm. It is. And if you look at the reality of the practices, every Christian school forbids Hindu expression. For example, there is a uniform. You wear the uniform. If you wear a vibhuti, that's a punishment. If you wear a Rudraksha mala, that's a punishment. You wear kumkum, that is a punishment. You wear flowers in your hair in traditional Tamil Nadu, for example, that is a punishment. Or if you go in Shabrimala, you put a black scarf around you to show that you are in that period, that too is a punishment. So every form of Hindu worship was curtailed and reduced down to an illegal practice, something to be mocked, and these kinds of things. So yes, it is
Right.
unfortunate. People who send their children to Christian schools should be
Right.
aware, if you don't have a strong grounding at home, your children are prime targets. They are prime
Correct.
targets for conversion.
Right. Yeah. Also, I mean, Christianity is known to use human psychology to its advantage. What I mean is, now teenagers love to belong, and they would do anything to belong in their peer group. We've heard of incidents where teenagers get into drugs and, the substance abuse
Right,
just to belong.
right, right,
So this teenager just wanted to belong.
right.
So that's what happened to her in the camp.
True, 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 true. And if I may add to that, there's one more thing that they promote, and this was the westernization. At least in urban Christian schools, westernization is a very big thing. The identification with westernization, the elitism that I'm talking about, and look down upon the people who are coming from a rural kind of background or who speak in local languages, look down and mock them. This was very big in the Catholic
Right.
institution that I've attended. This elitism was very, very big. They'll mock, for example, I remember still mocking Indian classical music. Why all this
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing? Instead, you listen to Eric Clapton or somebody else, some rock music. And the more
Mm-hmm.
unknown the rock musician, the more elite you are. And these kind of thinkings were prevalent. The mocking of Indian traditions and the upholding of Western traditions as an ideal was a deep deracination done by Eurocentrics that tried to put down Indian culture and show the superiority of European culture,
Mm-hmm.
eagerly embraced by missionaries to show that Hindu practices are backward, primitive, and anachronistic, and the Western practices are more progressive, completely hiding the fact that science is in conflict with Christian theology and science is not in conflict with Hindu philosophies. Completely hiding that, the positioning was done in this way. And these are all just, like I said, actors playing out their deep programmed roles.
Correct.
Unless you had a good grounding in your home through practices, through understanding of community, you are a target. You're a target, big ground target. And that
Right.
role now has been taken over by media. By the movies and media have taken over that role. So even if you don't go to a Christian school, that message is blared at you from newspapers, magazines, televisions, movies, and everything, that you are anachronistic if you were to do anything with Hinduism. You are progressive if you were to do any of these things. All the villains are all Hindus, wear all this tikka, they wear the kumkum and all this
Mm-hmm.
kind of things, and they will do every nefarious thing. In fact, that even it is so obnoxious, some of these movie makers, so base level obnoxious, they'll show a Hindu praying in front of some divinity, some kind of murti or something like that, and his henchmen are behind him telling, we'll kill this person, we'll kill that person, and so on. How many Telugu movies, Tamil movies,
Yes.
Kannada movies, Hindi movies show exactly this? So the portrayal of a Hindu is always as a hypocrite, praying and is villainous,
Correct.
murderous, and other such things.
Right.
And the minority shown as a noble guy, always noble ideals. He's a respected person. You always go to him for advice or what the right thing is to do over here. The pujari shown as a bumbling guy and as an idiot or
Mm-hmm.
venal and such kind of things. Very, very crass. So
Right.
even if you did not go to Hindu school, Christian schools, you have no escape from popular media. One has got to be sufficiently enlightened to understand that there are forces acting on your mind, even today, deracinating you, removing you away from your culture. If you're able to understand that and overcome that, you have a chance.
There's a verse in the Bible, Raj, that says, God chooses the foolish to put the wise to shame. Now, every convert with a low self esteem makes this verse his or her anthem. What do you think is happening here?
Yeah, this is exactly what you said. In fact, in my experience through these many years of my observations on who's the one who converts, I've seen the church praise on the weak. if there is somebody
Exactly.
who has undergone some personal tragedy at home. I've seen that. I've seen
Absolutely.
classmates who lost a father or a mother being consoled by the padres and other people with the idea that they're pulling them closer and closer. Christ has got plans for you, and these are the things. He loves you. He'll take care of you, and all these kind of things. So they prey on the weak, and they try to inject their noxious, expunge that word, please. They try to put in their ideology into impressionable minds. So
Correct.
impressionable minds at vulnerable moments are victims for things like this. So as far as going to the weak is concerned, my understanding is yes, they mean what they say. They know that they can go after these people and convert them. Historically, what did they do in India? They went after the economically depressed communities. The
Yes.
economically depressed communities were told that you are there like that because of this Brahmin, this caste system. They put you there, denied you education, denied you opportunities, all these kind of things. So by infusing that difference anxiety, by infusing that anger in them, converting their aspirations into anger, they turn them away from where they belong. That's what they did. And the same thing you find also in schools, in one individual practice. Community level, they did this. Individual level, they do this kind of thing. So yes, they really mean it when they say that God chooses the few to settle.
But the
Listen,
only thing is, it's
they're
not God
God's
who's choosing,
agents.
it's the evangelist.
Yes,
Yes.
God's
God.
agents are doing that.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, based on personal experience and empirical evidence, I tie this feeling to the fact that every conversion to Christianity happens when the person is at his or her lowest moment in life, either suffering physical or mental ill health, or addicted to substances, or is in financial or domestic or professional or marital difficulties.
Mhm,
Uh, you see, at such times, a person feels worthless, unwanted, unloved, ununderstood,
mhm,
So,
mhm.
and all they need is for somebody to tell them that they matter,
Yes, yes,
that they are
yes.
loved.
That's all they need.
And
Yes.
such people are never missed by proselytizers
Mhm, mhm.
whose only job is to fish for people like this.
Right.
Look at the irony here. People at church. So it's not only the proselytizer who has taken this person, this low self esteem person, to church, but also the people at church are coached to make a potential convert feel belong,
Right. Right.
loved,
Right.
wanted,
Right.
you know, and of course, all that camaraderie vanishes after the conversion is achieved.
Yes. Yes.
That's a different thing.
Yes.
But the person gets what he or she was looking for at the right time,
Right.
which is a sense of worth.
True.
And these converts, these potential converts, I must say, mistake the calculated human love at church for Christian God's love. They
Mhm,
think it's God's love. God has chosen them. God has selected them.
mhm,
I'm so
mhm.
sorry, it's not God. It
Yes.
is the proselytizer who has cast his fishing net
True.
out in the society.
True. 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 And if I may add to that, Esther, again through experience, I've seen many ways this conversion happens. This the so-called God selecting the meek or the weak is not so. I recollect that when I had applied to a certain Christian medical college after my 12th standard, and that particular medical college had wanted a recommendation letter from a church or a pastor to be attached to the application form. And you know the implication of that. So I used to volunteer. We're idealists those days. The church nearby, the Baptist church near my house. So we used to go and volunteer in their activities to what we thought was social work. And I thought I knew these guys very well. Of course, they'll give me a recommendation letter. So I go, hey, I'm applying to this Christian medical college, and would you be able to write a recommendation letter? The man says, the only way we can do it is if your family is registered in our church Bible over here.
Wow.
He will say convert, but this is the thing. But I have seen this again and again, whether it is for advancement in studies, advancement in jobs. If you're a doctor at a Christian medical college or any other such many such Christian hospitals are there. Advancement only comes if you convert at some point. We have heard about the industry in Tamil movie industry. In Tamil movie industry, now there is a statement underground at least saying that to advance, you need to become a Christian. Otherwise, you cannot advance in this particular industry. And I have had Christian friends who, for example, one person comes to mind. He had his sister, and his Hindu guy fell in love with the sister, and he insisted the only way he can marry is if this guy converts to Christianity. So the
Exactly.
love
Yeah.
jihad, the love jihad here is if you want to marry into Christianity, you have to convert into Christianity.
Correct.
So that is one more way. So career advancement, the love jihad, the educational, and the meek, the weak. If you're psychologically weak, that too is targeted. So we see this, and also the distancing of people, making the entire civilization weak, deracinate the entire civilization by the ethnocide that I talk about in my talks, British ethnocide, by 5 mechanisms. So that weakens the entire civilization, making them prime targets. We saw Calvil doing that. Calvil was doing that for depressed communities in Tamil Nadu. And we see the same thing happening in larger scales. So this whole notion of God chooses the weak to teach a lesson to the mighty is bogus. It is
Right.
clear that God's agents have been doing all of these methods, the chickenry, the forcing, and the other things in order for people to convert.
Yeah, I've said this time and again that lay evangelism is much more dangerous than career evangelism, because lay evangelists are the people that move within the circles that you move in. So they're your colleagues at work, they're your friends in schools and colleges, they're your roommates. They lay the foundation in the process of converting a person. It's only after their invitation that Hindu kids and adults go to churches. And they actually know a foolish, ignorant, on the fence Hindu when they see one.
Right.